I think that I will have to disagree with that number. We are not that high. We have crossed our targets were less 4% or less. Unfortunately, it looks like we may cross that threshold.
Senator Risa Ontiveros on Monday, August 15, says the Philippines wasted 20.7 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines as of August, amounting to 10.33 billion pesos. Citing data from the Department of Health, Ontiveros says the estimated cost is computed based on the price of the vaccine at 500 pesos. Ontiveros adds the country has a vaccine wastage at 8.42% as of August, almost double of the 4.7% wastage in June. The incident of vaccine wastage comes as the Philippines lags behind in terms of booster coverage for COVID-19. It urges the DOH to publicize its plans on speeding up its vaccination program.
Almost 3 years into the pandemic,
The education sector is at a crossroads.
Tuloy na po tayo na magsimula tayo mag-transition to 5 days in-person classes.
We have a plan for full face-to-face by November.
with safety and quality at stake.
Gusto natin regular yung counseling sa mga unvaccinated. Hinihikayat talaga po natin na mag-vaccinate.
The estimate has actually been e-learning loss almost equivalent to the 2 years of not going to school.
When our senior high school graduates graduate, they're still unemployed.
It's a clear and present threat, and the call to action is for all.
Huwag nating kalimutan na matagal na tayo nasa krisis, matagal na tayo merong education crisis.
This is
How can we address these issues and problems we are experiencing right now? What can we do to prevent it from worsening and those that might arise in the future? The promotion of human rights remains the most effective strategy for eliminating inequalities between countries and social groups and for increasing security, as stated by Pope Benedict XVI, which he addresses it to the United Nations on April 2008.
Human rights are rooted in our dignity as human beings. It is innate, inviolable, inalienable, and universal. This video will talk about human dignity, issues regarding the widening gap between the rich and the poor, ways we as future biochemists can address it, and the teachings of the Church promoting justice and the dignity of the human person.
According to Trinity International University 2019, human dignity is the recognition that human beings possess a special value intrinsic to their humanity, and as such are worthy of respect simply because they are human beings.
On the other hand, the Catholic Church says that human life is sacred and that the dignity of the human person is the foundation of a moral vision for society. It originates from God and is of God because we are made in His image and likeness, as stated in the book of Genesis.
It is now relevant not only to us future biochemists, but to all the people who are part of the church and society. We involve ourselves with injustices experienced by other people, for we are required only to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God, as stated by Micah chapter 6 verse 8. We work for the common good.
Now, in curbing the increasing gap between the rich and the poor, as future professionals, we should identify where and how it happens. Some of it are in the distribution of medical care, such as vaccines, and treatment prioritizations and the quality of healthcare received by different people.
First, the distribution of medical care such as vaccines. The World Health Organization, or WHO, has announced how vaccines should be distributed according to how COVID-19 virus affects different age groups. However, only 1% in low-income countries have been administered, and 2.8 billion people around the world are still waiting to get their first dose. This report got published on March 28, 2022. It happened due to vaccine hesitancy among marginalized groups because of the following: lack of education, lack of accessibility, and according to past reports of what might happen when taking vaccines.
Lastly, we can also see this gap in treatment prioritizations and the quality of healthcare received by different people. According to the research entitled "Why Prioritize When There Isn't Enough Money?", Wicklett on 2003 stated that even if countries adopted the most perfect priorities and expanded their capacity to use healthcare funds effectively, the solution was not to be found in better priority setting or management. The burden of disease would be lifted only if rich countries gave more money to poor ones. With this in mind, in terms of prioritizing treatments in medical facilities, people who have more would most likely be the first ones to receive treatments in hospitals, not unless the poor would have the money to pay down payments as soon as hospitals request. Even if they have health insurance, would it suffice? It is also applicable to providing the quality healthcare one can provide. The money would help you get the most efficient and guaranteed way of curing or preventing diseases.
Although this pandemic made it disadvantageous to marginalized groups when it comes to being recipients of medical attention, there are ways we can lift one another throughout this crisis. We need to educate, support, and give. Number 1. Invest in education. First, dissemination of information must reach every family in country regarding urgent health issues and proper disposal of medical drugs and supplies.
Second, we need to make education more inclusive and accessible. This includes petitioning to build more schools in secluded areas, equipping teachers with the proper supplies needed for teaching, and assigning teachers to appropriate subjects according to their specialization. Lastly, we should implement proactive and sustainable programs, prioritizing marginalized groups such as conducting and attending seminars addressing any health issues or problems, emergencies, and safety, giving out equity scholarships, and leading volunteer programs such as free tutorial services and workshops, among others.
Number 2. We must support and give more opportunities to marginalized groups. First, as future professionals, we can build businesses promoting a circular economy that provides job opportunities to marginalized groups that can improve their standard of living. Second, offer proper training programs to equip them with skills required in their respective jobs. And lastly, encourage them to innovate their businesses after they are financially stable and can start one, invest in the businesses, and help them develop. As how St. Ambrose once said, "The moon is in fact the church. She shines not with her own light, but with the light of Christ. She draws her brightness from the Sun of Justice, and so she can say, 'It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.'" We biochemists, we the church, should be able to give what is just as we attain higher and brighter futures, not only for ourselves, but for every person we can bring along with us. And by us, that means everyone.